Hello everyone. My name is Abhin Sibichan. I'm from third year chemical engineering. So today we introduce you to MATLAB. So welcome to the Math Coach Foundation MATLAB KEP by NT Toshan. So first of all, we'll start with the very basics of MATLAB. So this is the MATLAB interface. So we have a command window. We have an editor window that I have already opened. It's like a file. So what's the command window? Then when you put a new script, this is a script edit like the editor window, and then you have a workspace. So the command window basically does is it will execute one line code at one line code sequentially. So whatever you can only write a one line of code, and that code will be run sequentially. Like first that code will be run, then you have to enter the next code, and that will be run at that time. So sequential running of the commands will be done by command window. Whereas in the script, what it does is we can save it as a file. We can have multiple lines of code, which will be which can be run at a time by using this run button, and we will get all the outputs will be saved in the workspace, and we can access those workspace using the command window. And yeah, so just as I said just now, workspace saves all the output and all the variables, and it uses the memory to save everything. So this is the basic introduction, like what's happening in the interface of MATLAB. So let's get started. So MATLAB basically stands for Matrix Laboratory. So it means that whatever we are working in MATLAB will be basically we will be using matrices for calculations, and whatever programs that we'll be doing, it will be done using matrix. So matrix we have studied in our 11th, 12th classes. It is actually a rectangular arrangement of numbers which have n rows and m columns. We'll call it an n by m matrix. So whatever we are doing here is actually uh, calculation, any basic calculation for any calculation, but we will be using matrix only. So as an introduction, so let's start. Suppose we'll assigning a value to a variable. Suppose I have a variable, let's say x, and if I have to assign a variable, suppose I say a value, suppose let's say 4. What I will use is x equals 4. What it happens is it will we have made a variable x now, which will contain a value called 4. So whenever we call x, we will get the value 4. And if I press enter, we'll have x, we'll have the value 4. And in the workspace, you can see the x is saved with the value 4. So if I want to access x, just press x, and you will get the value 4. So that's how assigning a variable is done in MATLAB. So as I told, will be majorly dealing with matrices. So first we'll see what their vector is. A vector is basically a simple row or a simple column. So let's say an example. So let's say we have a variable named y, and let's say so this has to be taken care while we are defining any matrix, let it be a vector or a 2D matrix. We should use square brackets to define it. So right now I'm defining a row vector. Row vector in the sense there will be one row, there will be two or more columns. So let's say 1, 2, 3. So each element in a row can be separated using either a space or a comma. A comma is suggested because space can be confusing at times. So I'll use 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, and I'll press enter. See, right now we have a variable y which contains the value 1, 2, and 3. So this is actually a row vector. And similarly for a column vector, what I can do is instead of the commas that we use to separate the values here, we will use a semicolon. Okay, so -3, semicolon 5, semicolon 6, semicolon 90. And if you run this code, you will have a column vector. So in a column vector, there is one vertical line, and there will be 4 horizontal array. Okay, so that's how. So we have we defined a row matrix, we defined a column matrix. Now suppose if I want to define a 2 by 3 matrix, let's say a matrix M. Okay, So what I will do is, again, I'll first put the square brackets, and now 2 by 3. So there will be three columns. So there will be three columns in the first row, right? So let it be 1, 4, and 9. And now, in order to introduce the second row, I will use the semicolon. So once you have put the semicolon, whatever entries you will be doing is will be coming in the next row. So let's say I will be putting a 5, and 8, and minus 10. Now, if I do this, now if I run this, yeah, I have got a 2 by 3. So I have 2 rows and 3 columns. So this is a 2 by 3. Now there is an inbuilt function within MATLAB where you can check the size of a matrix. So let's see. The name is the function name is size. So we have right now we have four variables that we have defined. We have x, we have y, we have z, and we have m. Let's see x. You can see it's a 1 by 1 matrix. That is, it has one row and one column. So yeah, it's a 1 by 1 matrix. So everything is defined in my MATLAB as matrices. Now, if I check for size of y, I have 1 by 3, 1 by 3. So it's one row, 3 columns. That's it's a row vector. And similarly, if I go for the size of z, I'll be having 4 by 1. As you have seen here, it's a 4 rows and 1 column. So it's a 4 by 1 matrix. And if I look for the size of m, I should be getting 2 by 3. 2 by 3. So 2 rows and 3 columns. So that's how it's that's how it's working. So these are the basic introductions. So the matrices, everything, stuff like that. So this is the basic introduction. So now we can see when we are printing, when the output is being shown, you can see that it takes a lots of space in here. So if you run the command, there's a lot of space here, and once the variable is assigned, there's a lot of space here, space here. So what this means is that in order to look at our first command, we have to scroll up a lot, and it's taking a lot of our command window space. So if your MATLAB is working like that, you can what you can do is you can use the formatting tool. So what we can use is format, and since we have to compact our command window, the keyword is compact. So if I run the command format and compact, and now let's say if I run x, or let's say y, you can see the difference. The spacing between each line has like there is no spacing between each line. So it saves the space within the command window. And if you want to revert back, so suppose you guys like having space in between, so what you can do is you can just format loose. So once your format loose, and if you run y, it's back to the old form. So from now on, I'll be focusing on compact, because to save space, we'll be focusing on compact. Okay. So that's about this. Now, suppose I'm defining a new variable, let's say a, and it's 1 comma 2 comma 4 and 2 comma 3 comma 4, 1 comma 2 comma 5 and 2 comma 3 comma 4. So as you have seen earlier, if I press enter, this output will be shown in the command window. Okay. But suppose I don't want that output to be displayed in the command window. What can be done? So this is where the second use of colon operator comes. So if I can terminate any line of code, terminate as in it won't be displayed in the command window, just by pressing the just by adding a semicolon at the end of the statement. So if I run this now, you can see there is a variable a which has the value that we have given, but the a value did not appear in the command window. Earlier, whenever I ran a code, all those variables appeared in the command window, but right now it didn't appear. So if I in case if I want to access the a, I can just press a and it will come. So when we are using multiple lines of code, and we don't want many of the outputs, many of the variables to be shown in the command window, we can terminate whatever statements by using the semicolon. So this we have array, that's the first part. So now the next thing is the command window is occupying a lot of space. And to be honest, I don't want any of these x, y, z right now, because I have even if I want to access, I have saved them in the workspace. So what can I do? So in order to clear the command window, the command used is CLC, clear command window. CLC stands for clear command window. Now, if I press CLC, what happens is everything in the command window gets clear. That doesn't mean our variables are lost, because as you can see in the workspace, all the variables are still there. So even if whatever commands I gave in the command window is erased, it doesn't erase the variable. So in order to confirm that, let's call out any variable. Let's say Z. So if I call out Z, then we can see that it's same as what we had described earlier. Okay. So now what if I have to start again another set of coding? So I want to delete whatever is given in the workspace. I just want to delete it. So in order to do that, the command we'll be using is clear. So once we press clear, everything in the workspace will be deleted, and it clears the memory. So once we do this, we cannot access any of the variables that we had defined. So right now, if I try to access A, MATLAB will return that there is, it's not defined because we have cleared the memory. There is no A. So the commands which we taught us CLC and clear. So there is another one clearing command which is called close all. That comes into use only when we have like when we have figures open in MATLAB, such as if, for example, if you have open plots or something, graphical plot and all, then then only it will come into use. So right now we don't have any plots. So when the time comes, we look into it close all. So that are the those regarding the clearing function. So now let's get into variables. So as for so far you have seen that I have only given the variable name as X, A, M, B, etc., etc. So variable naming doesn't just be limited to capital letters. There is a rule for variables. So the rule says that a variable should start with a letter. It should start with a letter followed by a letter, a digit, or number of letters, digits, or an underscore. Now I can't press enter because since this is not a MATLAB command or something, I just wrote it down so that you guys can refer to it or not. But yeah, so I can't press enter. So variable naming should follow this rule. So it should start with a letter, and it can be followed by a letter, followed by letters, digits, or underscores in any order. The only issue is it should start with a letter. And the only special character that we can use is underscore. If you use any, if you try to use any other underscore, if you try to use any other special character for naming a variable, then MATLAB will send us the error message. So let's try. So I'll first have a letter, and then I'll have some number 56, and then I'll have again some letter GH and an underscore, and I'll assign it to, let's say, 56. See, this is a valid variable name because it started with a letter and it followed by letters or underscore and digits, whatever, it's fine. So it's a valid variable name and it has been saved in workspace. Now, let's try to use, so I'll start with 5 ph equal to 9. See, this is not a valid expression. So this is not a valid MATLAB name. So, and again, if I try to do, let's say T56 GH, instead of underscore, let me say I tried hash or something, or under at the rate, and you can see that see, there comes an error message. So whatever the error message is, basically it means that the variable name that you are assigning is wrong and it is not according to the rules of MATLAB. Okay, so that's the variable naming, the first part you have to remember. The second part you have to remember is there are many built-in functions in MATLAB. Many built-in functions in MATLAB. But suppose accidentally you assign a variable. If you assign a variable, existing variable, let's say sum. Sum is an existing built-in function in MATLAB. But suppose you assign a variable. Let's say if you there is a chance you can you assign the variable name as an already existing function. So what happens in MATLAB is your variable takes precedence. So your variable will be more important than your variable. The a variable name will be taken precedence. So once you try to do the inbuilt function that it was supposed to do, then it won't carry out. I'll try to explain it using a simple example. Suppose that we have I. I is defined as a complex number in MATLAB. See, I is defined as a complex number. Now, suppose if I assign a value one to I, what happens is from now on, MATLAB won't be giving us complex number. Instead, MATLAB will be providing us the value of I, which is V game. So how to check for this? So one of the keywords that we can use is I'll try to use exist and let me say sum. See 5. So what happens is just check that whatever answer we are getting, if it is any number other than 0, it means that this is a already built-in MATLAB function, and we shouldn't use this for giving for naming a variable. So suppose let's say if I say k, see 0. So that means that k is not a variable that, or a existing MATLAB inbuilt function, though it's safe. So it's safe to use k. But sum is already existing. So if you try to use sum, whatever the variable or the function that is given to sum, it won't work if you give any variable such as 1 or something like that. Okay, so that's about it. So while you are giving a variable name, try to check for these two factors. First, the variable naming rules, and second is the existence of the variable. Okay, and the next thing is, the next part is about percentage sign in MATLAB. So this percentage sign has actually two uses. One is commenting. Commenting can be really, really useful when you have many lines of codes. Commenting gives us an idea, like it's just reading a line, so understanding a code. So it's basically whatever we want the reader to understand, we can write. So I'll be writing like, let's say, I'll be since I'll be following multiple lines of codes from now on, I will use the script. So let me MATLAB KE by Torsion. So suppose this is just a line of comment. It won't like there won't be any interaction, or there isn't any role that it plays in our functioning. It is just for the reader to read and understand. So I have just given, so let's say x equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. So I can add a comment which says x here is a row vector. See, and if I run this, I'll have an x in my variable in my workspace. This will be just for, so suppose if I want to share this file to someone, he can understand what x means by just reading this comment. So percentage sign actually means inserting a comment in MATLAB. Now another use of percentage is double percentage includes a new section in MATLAB. Suppose naming variable is a session. Naming variable can be named given a session, and I'm giving a variable name, and I'll add a comment. Let's say it's a, we can say this is a valid variable name. And suppose if I try to give something like we can say this is invalid variable name. So whatever we do, so this is a new section. So one percentage sign helps us in adding a comment, whereas two percentage sign helps us in adding a section. So you can understand the use of these two while we are working on the mini project. So just try to remember one comment, one percentage sign helps you in inserting a comment, and two helps you in creating a session. Okay, so that's about comment section. So let's get into algebra. So algebra in the sense, matrix algebra, it's same as what you have studied in what you have studied earlier, but just for reference, uh, we will have, okay. So let's say I have A, which is 1 comma 2 comma 3 and 4 5 7 comma 9. I have A, and then I have B, which has the same uh, dimensions as A. Let's say uh, minus 4 comma 7. Okay. So okay, sorry, here I should add semicolon. So if I run this, I have A and B. So what I can do is, now suppose I want addition. So let's add a command A and so, and I will assign that to a variable, let's say C. So C is equal to A plus B. I don't want the output right now, so I'll terminate. And similarly, I will have difference. So D will be A minus B. E will be A star B, and F will be A divided by. Now, if our underscore, it will take some time. So we have A, B, C, D. Sorry. Yeah, the matrix multiplication, as you all know, this thing got error because, as you all know, matrix multiplication, there is a rule for the number of columns should be equal to the number of rows in it. So what we can do here is, I'll try to make it to a square matrix. So, now if I run the code, I will have A, B, C, D, E, and F. So let's see what is, I will access everything from other workspace. Let's say A and B. So as we all can see, C should be one plus, each element should be added to its own. So 1 plus minus 4 should give minus 3, 2 plus 7 should give 9. And if you see that C is just doing that. And similarly, D should be the difference. So 1 minus minus 4 gives 5. And C and D works normally. And even E is like what we have studied in matrix, 1 into minus 4 plus 2 into 11. The matrix algebra should be taken care for using E. And what happens in F is, where F is actually A star B inverse. A divided by B is actually A star B inverse. So if you want to check that, there is a function, there's a function called in, which actually introduces the inverse of a function. So let's say A star inverse of B. So you can see F and this, the current output is same, which means that when you try to divide two matrices, it will like, what you will actually do is A star and B inverse. So these are multi matrix algebra that we already know. But what comes most to our use is the element by element. What comes element by element operations. So right now, so in for that we'll, let's say, introducing dot operator. So what we can do in this is, if let's see, we have A and we have B. Suppose if I want to produce a matrix, let's say M, whose first element is the product of first element of A and B, second element is the product of element of A and B. So like that, what I have to do is, I have to, we have A star B, but instead of star, we will have dot star. So this is called dot operator. So what dot operator does is, see, 1 into minus 4 minus 4, 2 into 7 14, 5 into 11 55, and 7 into 32 33. So we will be using dot operator a lot rather than the normal matrix multiplication. So the same similar thing is with uh, division. A dot gives element by element division. So 1 divided by minus 4, 2 divided by 7, 5 divided by 11, and 7 divided by 34. So dot operator is something that you should look into it because that will be the one we'll be mostly using in most of our cases. So a dot okay. So that's about the matrix algebra. So right now, let's say I have a matrix. So uh, let's say I have a new matrix uh, H and okay, I have a new matrix H. Now suppose I want to access the value, one of the access values from H. Suppose I want to access the second element, that is second row, second column element is fine. So what I can do is H normal bracket 2 comma 2. So what happens is it will extract the second row, second column element. So you can access the matrices using by giving in the giving in the index of each of the variables. So you can even carry out all the matrix algebra that we just got. So suppose 2 comma 2, 2 comma 2 star 2 comma 3 should try to multiply second row, second column element should multiply with second row, third column one. So that is 5 into 6, which gives 30. Okay. So you can do accessing matrix can be done in this. The bracket should be taken care of. This is not square bracket, it's the normal bracket that we are using. So that is about accessing matrix. And suppose if I want to access, let's say I want to take the first row, but all first row, but all the columns in it. Like I have 3 columns right now, no, 1, 2, and 3. So if I want to access all the columns, I will just have a colon, a normal colon operator here. And if I run it, see, I access the first row with all the columns. Similarly, if I have to access the all the rows of the second column, all the rows of second column. So this can be done. So these are regarding the accessing of matrix. So now we will get into the main part. So what we can do right now is, so so let's get into the main part. So what we'll be introducing looping in this section. So let's first see for loop. For loop. So for loop is used when we have to repeat a set of commands for a non number of times. Okay, so suppose I want to print a number. I want to print a number 10 times. So let's say what we have to do is the syntax for loop is we have 4. We have a variable, let's say n or c to keep the count equal to the counting in MATLAB starts with, let's say starts with 1, because rather than if you try to access a matrix in other programs, it will have a 0th position, but in MATLAB we will be having first position. It starts with 1. So what we can do is even for counting we will start with 1, and let's say I want 10. Once we have entered into loop, see right now there is an error. It's showing that there is some kind of error. The error that is coming here is that once we enter into loop or any conditional statement or anything, we have to use the end keyword. So that's like bracketing whatever should be coming in the for loop. So now I told we have to print. So either I can just uh, put C. So what happens is each time it will just give the output in the command window, whatever is C is coming in the. Okay, now it's been run, and yeah. So what happens is we go to the command window. See what happens is we have taken a certain command here. So what happens here is we have C. So each time C, and we do not have to add any incrementation command, that is I equal to I plus 1, nothing like that. The MATLAB will work on its own. First it will work for C equal to 1, then it will go for C equal to 2 and stuff like that. So suppose if you want to print statement in MATLAB. That so that's another inbuilt function we will be looking into. Fprintf. Fprintf is the printing function in MATLAB. So let's say I have to print a function. I have to print a statement. Let's say this is the. Now what we use is %d. %d is what we called as format specifier. Okay. So what it actually does is, I'll show you what it is. So this is the %d iteration, and after this I will just, and now I'll run this code. So, okay, and in order to enter a new line,
hello,
sorry?
Abin.
Yeah. Okay, so as we were discussing, we were discussing about the for loop. So so clear function. So I have included this clear and CLC so that whenever I run the script, whatever is saved in the workspace will be cleared. Whatever is present in the command window will be cleared. So right now I have added a C. C is a variable which will count which is set as a variable to count the number of times the command or the statement has to be repeated. So fprintf, I have introduced a new built-in function fprintf, which will be used to print a statement in MATLAB. And %d is a format specifier. So right now what we can see is if I just put C inside this, it will consider the fprintf statement will just consider it as a word. So if I put C, it will print this is the Cth iteration for 10 times. Rather than that, what I need to do is I need to print the value of C, or the numerical value of C that is present, that is numerical value of C, and I want to print that. So that can be done with %d. So once you put %d outside of this, this is a can add double colon. Um, uh, yeah. So this is like, this is a string is a, like, on set of, array of alphabets or something, alphabets. So, or it's not numerical, we can't do any calculations, just like printing a statement. So in order to print the corresponding value of C within the statement, we are using %d. And once we are used %c, you have to specify which variable should be present in this space. So here we have presented it with C. So when we have multiple varying inputs and multiple varying variables within a loop, to be clear which as to which variable should be here. So right now it's a simple code, and this is a new line function. So if I run it without this, what happens is there will be a string like end to end. It will go horizontally. It will go horizontal, like it will repeat 10 times. This is the first iteration, or go like that. So in order to stop that, I have put a new line character, and now let's run this. Run, and now you can see. So one iteration, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay, this is the 10th iteration. So this is how fprintf works. This is how for loop works. So much about this. This is the basic idea. So we need a variable name, and we need the beginning starting value to the end value. And yeah, so I haven't discussed about this part. So let's see. If I put 1:10, so this operation right here means is to. So it will go with the increment of 1. So next, we can see 1:10 means 1, then another, it will add 1 until the 10th part. So suppose if I want, say, all the odd numbers, so all odd numbers means it should be added by a number of 2 and 10. So what now it happens is, see, 1, it's incremented by 2, the next number is incremented by 2 till it reaches 10. So what happens is 9. So 9 plus 2 is 11, which goes beyond 11 at 10. So it stopped at 9. So this is the function. So even you can try here. So instead of this, we can try, let's say 2. And if I run this function, okay. C has C is this. The current value of C is 9. That's what is being shown, because each time the loop goes, the value of C gets replaced. It's not being added. So first value would be 1, then it will be replaced by 3 and goes on. And right now the value is 9. So yeah. So that's about us. So that's for loop. This is a basic introduction to for loop. And so yeah. And suppose there's a small part. Suppose I want to add a vector. I want to build up a matrix. Suppose I want all this to come into a matrix. What I can do is I have A of C. What happens is this will create a row vector and with the index C. So you know row vector has 1 by C. So 1 by I or whatever. So there will be number of columns with one row. So what we can do is this is equal to, let's say, C plus 1 or something, and I'll run this. So what I have, so these are uh, this is how we can make matrices and using for loop, and this is how we will be using for loop. So and similarly we'll be using while loop as well. So if you're looking for while loop, so while loop will repeat the set of command for a known condition. So until the condition is met, it won't stop. So suppose I want while C is less than 10, and since to bracket it, we will have the n keyword. So while C is less than 10, so using while loop, normally we need to have an initial value. So let's say I have C is equal to 1. Okay, so this will continue as long as C's value is less than 10. Once C value goes above 10, this loop will end. So let's say C is equal to C plus 1, and f print f. Let's see. So if I run this, sorry. So f print f equals percentage d, and let's say with a meaning character. So if I run this, see what happens is the once it came into the loop, the C value became 2, and it ran as long as the value of C was less than 10. So C less than 10 means once C for C value is 9, the next step gives the C value to be 10. So that's why here the C value is 10. Okay, so once it went about 10, like once this condition was no longer being met, we came out of the loop. So this is about for loop and while loop. So now let's see some useful built-in functions in MATLAB. Okay, some useful built-in functions. We have already seen some of them. We have seen size function. Then we have ci, which is a complex function. Then we have seen fprintf. So these are the some of the useful built-in functions that we have seen already. So some of the mathematical functions that you can see in this case is, let's say, cosine function, sine function, tan function. So what we can do is, see, cos. Let's say I have defined a variable x, and a pi is already defined as 3.1416 in this case. So let's say I'll assign that variable to x, and now I want to find sine of x. See, sine of x is 0, 1 is essentially 0. It's giving a very precise value, but yeah, it's sine pi is 0, so you can take it. This is 0. And let's say cos of x will give -1, and tan of x, see, again 0. So this is about so these are some very useful mathematical function, very easy since it's same as the syntax that we usually use for writing. We can use that. And a cos, now this is cos inverse, sine inverse, and tan inverse. So it's a stands for arctan. So similarly a sine, that's 0.5. Okay, and a cos, so there will be a cos, then will be a tan, These are the other functions. So another thing is, suppose I need to find sine d. Sine d in the sense the input angle, the input will be in degrees. So right now I have given sine x. This is in radian. Whatever input we are given for sine x, sine, cos, tan are in radians. Suppose I want to give the input in degrees, then I can use the function sine d. So sine d will give you 0, and cos d of 180 will give you -1. So this d implies that the angle is in degrees. And then some other useful functions as square root function. So square root is sqrt, square root function. Suppose let's say I want to find the square root of 169, see 30, and this is square root function. Then there is absolute value function. So absolute value of, let's say, -3. Okay. All these functions will be useful. Uh, uh, it's just a basic introduction, but while using any for any further complicated programming, all this function can be found really useful. And then we have log function. So log of, let's say, so this log is actually natural log of natural log. Okay. So okay, sorry. Log of, let's say, 4. See, this is natural log. And the another function that we can do is exponential function. Exponential function is exp of itself. Okay, so these are some of the normally used mathematical built-in functions in MATLAB. There are many more, but these are some of the very basics. You can find everything in Google, because there are many built-in functions in MATLAB. And another set of functions we can think of is rounding of function. Suppose I want to round off a function. So let's say x equal to 5.67. I want to round it off. So the function is round x. Round x will give the normal rounding of whatever we have studied earlier. So in addition to that, there is another two more functions called ceil and floor. So what ceil does is it will round to the next, the greater integer. So 5.67 is rounded to the ceil. Ceil is the 6. And if I have to round it up to the lower one, floor. So these are three other rounding of functions that rounding of built-in functions that we can use. And so that are some of the very useful built-in functions. So it involves cos, sine, tan, a cos, a sin, a tan, sine d, cos d, tan d, square root function, absolute function, log function, exponential function, and rounding of function. And another one I have told in the beginning is sum. So suppose I want to find the sum of elements in an vector. Let's say a is equal to 1, 2. So this is a row vector. And if I want to find the sum of elements, I just have to give sum a. See, that is sum of elements of all the elements in A. So what happens is, rather than going for a for loop to find the number of elements in this case, we can just use the sum function. And there are many built-in ECA functions to EC our calculation. So these are some of the built-in functions used. So now let's get on to the one of the last part in this session, which is data visualization. Data visualization. So what data visualization basically does is it helps in plotting graphs and stuff, because we know that we'll be working a lot with graphs. We'll be interpreting and analyzing graphical data a lot. So MATLAB already has uh, set up uh, inbuilt functions in that case. So here I will write a script function. Let's say I have x. Okay, I have x which start from 0, which increments by 0.1 till 2 pi. I have x. Now what I can do is I will have sine. I will take sine of all the values. So y will be sine of x. Let's say, and let's say z will be cos of x. Okay. Now what I want is I want to plot this on a graph. So this can be done by using the plot function. Plot function. So what we can say is plot, first say what all are the x coordinates, then input the y coordinates, and let's say run. And so this is our x is 0 to 2 pi, and y is our sine function. So this is our sine function starting from 0. And similarly, if I want to plot cos function, I can give x comma z. Now what happens is there's already a plot function, and this is plot function. If you run this, let's see, we have only got the cos function. We didn't get the sine function plot. So what we have to do here is, in order to have multiple plots in separate plots, we need to give the function figure and give this the name figure 1, and let's give this the name figure 2. And now if I run this, and I have two figures. See, I have figure 1 and figure 2. So this is how we'll be plotting. This is how we have our plot. So we have x, and the size of x and y should be the same while plotting, because we need to have corresponding number of points. Uh, though the curve looks smooth, it's actually plotting each of these points separately for obtaining the graph. So that's it. So next thing is, any graph should be properly there should be proper formatting of any graph. So we need to have a title for the graph. We need to give x title. We need to have y title. And if there are multiple plots within a multiple curves within a plot, we need to input legend. So what we can do here is title. Title of a graph can just be given by saying the name title, and we have to give it as string or char, anything is fine. So title, let's say this is sine curve, and let's say x label. X label is x, and we have y label, which is y. Okay, so these are what right now. Let's see. So second one I haven't added anything, but for the first one you can see this is y curve, this is x. Then we have a heading which says sine curve. So these are the functions you can similarly it can be done for the second plot also. Now another one important thing we can which can be taken care of is, suppose we want to plot both of this graph in one plot. So what in that case what we can do is, we have a plot, right? We have a plot, and if we want to hold the next plot onto this plot, we will use the function hold on. And let's say since we are only holding it to the first plot, we will only need one plot. And let's say I'm running this code now. So what, see, I have both the plots on one. It has the required x and y. See, we can change it to, let's say, y comma z, and this is just, let's say, and if I run this mail, you have y comma z and x, but we don't know which curve is which. So we need to add a legend. Legend basically means which color or which curve is which. Legends help us to identify the curves. So what we can do is, now let's say, let's add legend. Okay, so legend, the first one is a sine curve, so we'll give sine x, and the next one is cos x, right? And yeah, so I'll just run this thing. Now we have a legend. So legend is what we call this identification mark or something, because now you know the blue color is for sin x, the orange color is for cos x. So when we have complex graphical plotting, legends can be useful. And and another one thing we can include is, suppose we want to grid lines to be on, as in a graph paper, then you can simply put on grid on. Yeah, so we have grid lines. And if you, then another thing we have to take care of, we have to hold off, otherwise whatever graph are plotted, it would be holded onto this plot, and everything will be on same page. Suppose we need two separate plots, so it should, whenever we have given hold on, after our required plots are given, we have to hold it off. So that's about it. And we have grid on. Okay, so these are some of the points. So Another one is that suppose you want to say you have plotted here. Suppose what we can have is right now it's just a straight line. I mean single line. Okay. So suppose you want to have some other markers. So what we can say is I'll explain what it is. Let's say I run this. So what happened here is it's what happened. Let's say see. Okay. So what happened here is K represents a black. K represents the color black, and star represents the this asterisk. So once I have given this command K comma star, what it happens is it will plot all the lines with a black asterisk. And let's say I want to have it with blue asterisk. So I'll write blue star. And if I run this C, I have blue star and black star. So it's not just blue and black. There are many other options. So not just stars. We can have circles or squares. So many function as that. So this can also be useful for data visualization and plotting of graphs. And next thing we can include is this will be what the last topic I'll be covering. So what we can do is suppose we want to mark a specific point in our graph. So what we can do is use the text command and specify the point. So let's say I want to mark the point say 2 and 0.5. Since it's sin x and cos x curve, it won't go above 1 or go below -1. So try to have a point in that range. And what I can do is insert the string thing, and left arrow indicates that it will have a left arrow pointed at this point, and whatever comment you want to give, let's say it's my point. Just if you do that, see, you can see this. So why can't we see that particular point is because we haven't plotted this point in the graph. So in let's say I want to plot that as well. So plot 2 comma 0.5 comma let's say mm, S stands for square. So if I run this, see, so this actually marks my point. So whenever you want to mark a specific point that you know, you can use this text. This can be up arrow, right arrow, down arrow, and this can be anything. You can put as much space as you want. It's fine. Okay, so yeah, the space has been included.
Hi guys, I'm Navin Patilar from third year mechanical. So let's move on to the mini project part. So okay, so here we are given a 4-bar linkage. So basically, 4-bar linkage is something like mechanism and related to mechanism and machineries. But if you are not from mechanical background, then need not to worry. We will not be focusing more on mechanical. Like we will be learning more about the MATLAB and how to implement the built-in functions and some basic MATLAB. So what uh, what given us here is given us to here is like uh, this is a 4-bar linkage. That is crank. This is coupler. CB is follower, and AB is fixed link. So when we rotate AD, we need to trace the path of point E. So let's like we are given L1, that is follower is 150, L2 60, L3 50, L4 160, L5 150.33, and angle alpha is constant, that is 101 degree. So let's see in MATLAB how we are going to do that. Okay, so let's visualize what we have to do here. Okay, so see when we're rotating the crank, we need to trace the path of point T. Okay, so first we will input the parameters. Um, Okay. So initial length, positions, and coupler angle. So first we will use CLC to clear all the text from the command window. Then clear to clear all the variables from workspace, and close all to close all the figures. Okay. Then using format sort G, we will sort all the variables up to the 6 decimal places. Then we'll input the crank value L3 as 50, coupler length L2 as 60. Then output link L1 150, fixed link L5 150.33, L4 that is coupler extension 160, AD is angle alpha in degree, that is 101, and AR is angle alpha in radian. So we will convert a degree to radian. So adding to pi by 180, in MATLAB we use pi as pi, and angle theta is variable which we are going to rotate. So angle theta will start from 50 and it will increase by 1 degree in each iteration. So theta d is a matrix which will save the values angle theta. So values are 50, 51, 52, so on, and up to the 410. Then we have uh, d. So let's see what d is here. So basically d is the diagonal, that is BD. So we will use d to calculate the value of angle gamma and angle beta. So we can easily find the value of d using cosine formula in triangle ADB using link L3, L5 and angle theta. So here we find the value of d using cosine formula. Now let us come to the calculation part. So here inside the for loop, first we have find the value of angle gamma and beta. This both angles are variable. Then coordinate of x and I, because all these four variables are varying with angle theta. So we are calculating inside the for loop. Then we will give title x limit, y limit, and plot. So let us see all the things one by one. Inside the for loop, we are initializing I with 1, and we are going till the length of theta in degree. What is the length of theta in degree? So length of theta integrates all the variables inside the matrix, number of variables inside the matrix, or number of values inside the matrix TD. So total number of values inside TD are 360. Then how we calculated gamma A10, that is tan inverse L3 sin theta by L5 minus L3 cos theta. So then using perpendicular by base, then similarly we calculated beta, that is a cos t square plus L square minus L1 square by 2 L2 Ti minus gamma. So this is how need not to worry all about calculation part. So we have calculated gamma and beta. Now we will calculate the find the coordinate x and y. So here x is L3 cos of theta plus L4 cos of alpha plus beta of I. Here beta is varying with I and theta is also varying with I, but angle alpha is constant, that is 101 degree. Similarly, we'll find the value of y, that is L3 sin theta plus L4 sin alpha plus beta of I. Okay, then let's come to the plotting part. We'll use hold on, because in each iteration we are plotting a point. That is some particular point for the value of theta. Then so using hold on, we want all this point in a single plot, so we'll use hold on. Now we'll give title to the plot for bar coupler curve plotting. We will keep the x limit from minus 200 to 200, while y limit from minus 200 to 200. Using plot, we will plot x comma y, and using this circle we will draw these points to trace, and we will save these points inside the trace. Now, yeah, also we will give it color black. There is K, and then Cx and Cy. We are saving all the coordinates like Cx and Cy, all the coordinate points like A 0, 0, B, D, C, E. All the coordinates we saved inside the uh, variable Cx and Cy. So Cx and Cy are matrix. It will save 0, L3 cos theta, then L2, then L5, and similarly L4 cos beta plus alpha. Then, so we have drawn this trace using the wish circle. Now our work is to draw this links. So how we gonna do that? Using inside the crank, using line function, we will give the x1, x2 coordinate. X1 is 0, x2 is C2, Cx of 2 for the couple crank part. It is C2. Now we'll give color red and line with this 5. Coupler, similarly for coupler, using line, we will give coordinate x1, x2, y1, y2. We'll use green color and line with S5. Output as C3, Cx of 3 and L5, Cy of 3 and 0 are the coordinates. We'll use yellow color and line width as 5. And for fixed link, using the line built-in function, we'll give the coordinates at 0, L5, 0, 0, and we'll use a black color and line width as 5. So for ED, E to D, that is C of 2, and this one is C of 5. And similarly for EFC, this one is CX of 5, and this is C of CY of 3 and CX of 3. So we have drawn all this line, but again, yeah, like we will use the pause function to see the animation. Like if we do not use the pause function here, what is going to happen? See, we won't able to see the animation. It will directly show us the trace. So we need some time between each iteration to see the like floating of each points. So we will be able to see the animation smoothly. See, now we can see the animation part or the simulation how it's working. Now we will delete the crank coupler output AD, EC, and trace. Why we are deleting? Like, let's see what happen if we do not delete those lines. We'll comment out all the values. And I will run again. See, it will trace those link in all the iterations. So we are getting different position for all the links in each iterations. So we need to delete all the links every time. Okay, so uh, that was all thing. And for the first we saw the calculation of angle, then we found the coordinates of E, then we did floating part, then we did using which circle we traced the point coordinates say x and y. Now then we saved the coordinates because for each iteration we will get different coordinates. Then we drawn the crank coupler output fix ED and EC. Then we saw the animation. Then we deleted all the links. Now again after deleting all the links, at the end we will again need the links, no, to see our 4-bar linkage. So we will back to initial position. That is for angle theta equals to 40 degree. We will again draw the crank, coupler, output, fixed link,
AC. So that was uh, all in a mini project. So this is how we can trace any point. Let's suppose here we trace the point E. We can even trace this point or this point or yeah, like these or this point by simply changing the coordinates of X and Y. So that was all about the basics of MATLAB. I hope you learned a lot and thank you for joining.